It's the wrong way, man. It's the wrong way. Come on. Look over your own tail. What's wrong with you? Oh, man. He's really got him, though. He's got him.
What's up, guys? Tragic Reptiles here. So right before we get started, I just kind of want to introduce a new member to the gang. This is a ornate monitor. This is Atari. You're going to be seeing quite a bit of him or her. Have no idea yet. Too young to really tell. But is going to be hanging out for a lot of the shows here in the future until he or she gets too big. And then we'll kind of take it from there. So other than that, we got a couple people to bring on today. First and foremost, we've got the notorious Dakota.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. All right, man. So I'm pretty stoked for tonight. I mean, Skinks, pythons. I mean, and I think there was one other one too.
Yeah, they also do some old world rat stuff. I'm pretty stoked. I know way back, probably a couple months ago, I did do a little interview with them, and this was actually before they were really getting into the skinks, so I'm excited to talk a little bit more of that and really dive into some more of the rat snakes that they are doing.
Awesome. Sweet. All right, well, let's not wait anymore. R&B Reptiles. Welcome.
Yo, what's happening? How's it going, man?
Dude, it's going good, man. We're absolutely thrilled to have you. We got a lot of questions. I know I have a ton of questions about skinks. I've got one of my own that we've recently brought in. So this is a big, big learning curve for me. I know Dakota's got some big questions for you as well. So how's everything going with you, man?
Going good, going good. Normally it's me and Ryan. I know last time we were on, it was me and Ryan, but he's actually a little sick right now. So he and I are not hanging out at the moment because he got sick. Hopefully it gets better, here soon. And he wanted to be on. So just to let you guys know, he really wanted to be on, but he just isn't up for it. So
it's all right. Well, we'll catch him at another time. I mean, no worries.
There's always a part two.
Yeah,
part two. There we go.
Awesome.
Dakota,
things are going good though.
What's that?
I said things are going good though.
Awesome.
Yeah, you guys have had one impressive skink year going on. What was it? That 40-something babies with 7 litters?
Yeah. It was interesting like that. So we have northerns and easterns for blue-tongued skinks, and our northerns, like a lot of people breed northerns in the United States. It's not like crazy easy, but it's not terribly hard.
Yeah.
And we produced, I think we had like 6 females or something like that, and I think 5 went. So, and you get about 10, between 8 and 12 babies, roughly. So we had like almost 40 northerns, just under 40 northerns this year. And we're like, oh, that's not bad. But easterns in the United States are typically harder to produce. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple reasons why we think that we produced so many this year. So normally people produce like 1 or 6, like in a whole collection of them. TC Houston at Mountain Herps or Mountain TV, Mountain Reptile TV. I've now all of a sudden
Mountain something.
Yeah. So anyway, he produced 20 this year, which was like astounding. That's more than what most people have produced in the country in a long time. And when he was messaging us and was like, hey man, how many did you guys do? And like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, it's so awesome. Like I felt really bad, but I was like, it's awesome that you produced 20. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
We produced 47 this year, which is probably more than anybody's done in the country yet. So,
you did 40 northerns and 40 easterns. Is that what
roughly.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. And
crazy.
it's not
And
like
is
we're
this
like
your first year in it?
no. So
Okay.
we've been producing Northerns for like 6 years, and
Oh, really? Oh, I was off base.
yeah, that's okay. A lot of it's funny. We don't talk about skinks a ton on our videos because of those skink videos. Nobody ever watches. It just happens to be. I don't know why we're in that like ball python clique, and so like, that's what people watch. So
Ironically, that's why I don't show any of my ball pythons because it never does well.
That's interesting.
So
I guess
if you can teach me your ways and how to get into that niche, I'll teach you how to get out of it.
Yeah, that's the tough part. We just decided that we're just going to start showing more and more skinks and old world rat snakes, which are awesome. We have a handful of different species actually that we work with, so it's
you guys
fun.
You guys have some awesome stuff. But I feel like we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves. We still got the whole podcast. Why don't you tell us, how you got into reptiles? Formed R&B. I know it's a great story. I'd love to hear it again.
It's a funny one. It's better when Ryan's here, but so I was never like the reptile guy. I was into animals. I mean, I like animals; they're cool, but I never was like a reptile guy. My brothers and I had lizards when we were little, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what kind of lizard it was. I mean, I kind of picture it, but I couldn't tell you what it was. And Ryan and I actually for a little while tried to figure it out, but never worked out. So we like animals. I'm not afraid of animals, whatever. Ryan was into he got into snakes a bit. He was doing he went to a reptile show, and there was a guy that owned a pet store near him and was like, "Hey man, you want to come to my reptile show and help me, vend?" And Ryan's like, "Okay, sure." So he did it, and the whole time he had this normal ball python he like had on his shoulders the whole show. And so he ended up buying it. And then from there, it was like he got into a handful of snakes. Every year he'd buy a few more, and he'd buy racks and stuff like that. And that went on for like 5 or 6 years. And then he's like, during this, 2 years before the point where I jumped in, he started calling me, "Ben, you got to come to the reptile show. Like, we should hang out." And we've known each other since we were little kids, and we just kind of lost touch. Life, you just lose touch and whatever. And we would talk, but we just didn't hang out that much. And I was real busy and whatever. And he's like, "Dude, we got to go to a show. We got it for like 2 years." So like, imagine like a friend of yours is like, "Dude, come on. Like, I want to hang out with you. We got to go do this." And so finally I was like, "All right, let's go. That's fine. I give up. Let's do it." And he goes, "All right, I'll call you right back." And then he goes, "All right, I got the tickets. We're set up. We're going to Daytona, and it's on this weekend." And I'm like in a few weeks. And I'm like, "Wait a second, like Daytona, Florida?" And so we're like, "Oh yeah." So, and Dakota, I know that you've heard this. I feel like it's weird that I'm saying it again, but it's fun. Yeah. So
yeah, just pretend you're talking to Trevor.
Yeah.
So we flew down, and I had some friends that were down in like Orlando. So we flew into Orlando. We hung out a little bit, drove over to Daytona, and it was like the first day I was like, "Wow, this is real interesting." Like, I don't know what's going on. The first reptile show, not really into reptiles. And Ryan's like, "Ben, look, look at these ball pythons," and he's explaining everything. And banana ball pythons at that time were selling for $25,000 an animal. Like, I saw people at a table handing cash over and getting a snake, like one ball python. And I was like, I can make money. Like, I'm a business guy. Like, I went to school for marketing. Like, I can do this, and I'm good with people. So that's like my deal. And so Ryan's like, so we're sitting in a hot tub. Maybe there might have been some drinks around, and like just talking to people. And Ryan's like, if you buy some animals, if you buy an animal, actually is how he started. You buy one female, I'll breed it. We'll split the price, the cost of the babies, and you can make some money. I'm like, all right. So I'm thinking, and I'm like, by the end of it, we're like, holding hands, singing and stuff and whatever. And you're like, so you're like, I'm like, dude, if I'm going to get in, I want to get in, but, and he's like, yeah, okay. But he didn't know what that meant. And I was kind of just formulating it in my head. So the next day, so, it's a 2-day show. That was the Saturday. So that night, Saturday night, actually went to the auction, and I'm like, all right, look, I don't want to win everything in an auction. I don't want to win. Most of the times I don't want to win anything, but I don't like losing. So like, I was like buying stuff, and Ryan's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I just won like a pastel male. Like, this is cool. Like, I don't know." And he's like, there's no reason for us to own that animal. I'm like, all right. So I'm like paying, US ARC, which later I learned like what it really is. And, I love US ARC.
At least it went to a good cause.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I was like giving everything that I won, I gave away, like right there. I was like, I don't want it. Here's just my money. Give it to the next, like, I don't know. But so all of a sudden I was like really cool. Like I was feeling like this is a cool community. Sunday came around. He's like, dude, this is the animal. And we found a black pewter ball python. And so I'm into ball pythons, and I don't know how much you guys are into. I know that Dakota has a few, and
we're up to 5 now.
5, and you don't have any? Okay.
We're about to get 7. We're about to go up 2 more.
There you go.
We're growing. Ball pythons is 2021. I kind of took a side, put those on hold for a bit while I was working on those other stuff.
So, almost 10 years ago, a pewter ball python, the guy was selling it for $450. And I was like, all right, I don't know anything about ball pythons, but that sounds like a lot of money to me for my very first snake. Like, I don't know. So he goes, do you want to check it out? And I'm like, no, I don't handle it. Like, I don't want to handle the snake. Like, I don't know what you're talking. So he gave it to Ryan. Ryan checks it out, and we buy it. And we go up to the shipping table, and the guy's like, how big of a box do you want? How much do you want to ship back to where you're going? And actually, it was Chad Brown. And I was like, yeah, like 3,000 grams. And he goes, okay. And Ryan's like, Ben, you're an idiot. Like that, the snake weighs like 80 grams, 100 grams. Like it's not 3,000 grams. Like you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, and I turned to him and I said, keep up. And that's all I said. And then I like walked up. And he's like, what? And then I ran over and I went to this lady I bought because I was like, if I'm going to get in, I don't want to buy one snake, and I don't want to buy a snake that's not going to breed this year. So I bought 2 adult ball python females. I bought another adult male. I bought another baby. I ended up with 5 snakes, and I was like, yeah, it's probably roughly 3,000 grams. I don't know. So I bought 5 snakes right there, and I was like, yeah, well, I'm doing it. Like, let's get in.
Hell yeah.
That's what started R&B Reptiles. Like, really. We shipped it back, and Ryan's like, I don't know what's going on. And within
Ryan's over here like, I said 1 snake. I don't have room for 5.
So Ryan's like one of those like crazy planners. So he actually had like, I don't know, 18 empty bins that he was like, oh, one day I'm going to fill. Yeah. So I bought 5 snakes that first day or that first weekend. And I was up to 10 snakes within the month. And then, or like maybe 2 months. And by then, like, so Ryan had 9 ball pythons and 2 boas, and we ended up with like 30 ball pythons within 5 months or 6 months, something like that. But it was kind of funny because we're like, hey, well, I bought adult females, like we should probably breed them and get going and all. And Ryan's like, all right, so we got an old freezer, converted it like a stand-up freezer, converted it into an incubator, and we're like, I don't know, maybe 3 months in, and we got our first clutch. Like, I don't know, maybe it was 3 months, 5 months in, we got our first clutch. And it was surprising because we didn't know it was coming. And Ryan's like freaking out. Like,
oh, man. Yeah, I bet.
So
I've been in that similar situation with leopard geckos. Like, we purchased it was like a super snow female, and the person we got them from was a breeder, and they thought that she didn't take, and she did, and 2 weeks later popped 2 eggs out, and we were scrambling left and right trying to find an incubator. What one was, we were not ready at all. Yeah. And like, once we did our research and kind of got everything together, it turned out okay, but it ended up being the eggs were infertile.
Yeah.
So
the way it goes, right?
All that rush and hustle for infertile eggs. But
yeah,
man. So what can you say? So you get all these snakes, you start off, and like, what is your thought process at that point? You obviously being a little bit new into it, and your partner kind of being like the snake enthusiast almost. Like,
yeah.
What was your thought process? Like, damn, I bought all these snakes. Now what?
So, all right. So, and I've talked about this before in like a couple of videos, but I'm an idiot. I mean, really, like that's really what it comes down to. Like,
Same boat over here.
Yeah, I mean, let's high fives around, guys. I mean, because seriously, so I didn't know anything about the market. I didn't really know how long it took to breed the animals. I didn't know. There's so many things I didn't know. And Ryan is like super nice. So I'm the people guy, and Ryan's the animal guy. And he's like, Ben, if you're spending money, I'm not going to tell you how to spend it. And I'm like, yeah, but you could have told me a little bit more direction. You're like,
Yeah.
a tiny bit. But he is really supportive, and we always go back and forth. Like, 1 month I'm like, dude, I don't know if I want to do this, and he's like, dude, this is gonna be great. And then I'm like, dude, it's gonna be awesome. And he's like, I don't know, man, this is getting like real rough, like stuff like that. So it's good that we're together like that. But at that time, I was just like collecting Pokemon. I mean, really, like. I'm collecting. I mean, okay, so it was back then. Maybe it's Pogs, right? We're just trying to collect Pogs all day.
Right.
So Dakota's looking at us like, I don't know what that is, but
Hey. I have a faint idea.
So
damn it.
I understood fully what it was.
I knew you were.
Was it the look? Did I give a certain look? Is that what gave it away? I'm over here like.
You're like,
I have to start going on my phone real
quick. I know exactly what that is, and you're like, nope. But no, so I just was trying to collect a lot of animals, and I didn't really plan any breeders. I was like, oh, this looks cool, I'm gonna buy it. Oh, this looks, and I mean, I dumped a ton of money in right away, but totally the wrong direction. I mean, really, looking back, I wish I would have done something different. So I always tell people,
I mean, like, a pastel male, then really, really.
That's pretty much what Ryan's like. Some things he'll tell me not to do, but so like I tell everybody, if you're gonna buy into ball pythons or into any species really, and you're like, hey, I really want to get in. Look, man, instead of trying to get 20 animals for $5,000, get one animal for $5,000. Like I always say, buy more
quantity.
Yes, so higher dollar for less animals. Always go that route. In the beginning, especially, and that's where I went wrong. I mean, really, we didn't get into recessives early, stuff like that for ball pythons. But once we did ball pythons for a little bit, we said, there's like always ups and downs, ebbs and flows, with the market. And we said we should probably get into some other species, and that's when we got into a couple different things, and a couple things that we got in and out of, and I wish we would have stayed in, and we're going to get back into some things, but like we got into dry marcon, and
I yellowtail creepo, if I'm
so
that's definitely something I would get back. Dry marcons are definitely something on the list for me.
Oh, they're cool.
They're a cool rad snake, man. I saw one at a table once at an expo about a year back. They wanted $600 for an adult. And I'm like, where do I put this thing? Yeah, I know. It was end of the day. He was like, I was looking at it. At the time, I mean, this might have been a year or so back. I wasn't too familiar with the colubrid side of things. Yeah. And so I'm like, this is a cool snake. And it was a yellowtail creepo. And he's like, hey, I'll tell you what, $600, you can take it home. And I'm like, let's see, where do I put this large colubrid to make this work?
Yeah. They're cool, man. So we bought out. So when we first started, one of the things Ryan was like, Ben, I need you to do this because he's really not into talking to people. He's a lot better at it now, but back then he really was like not really into it. It's not his thing. And he goes, I want you to, network for me. And that's my deal. Like if I can say I can do anything well, it's network. That's what I do. So within the first year, like we're hanging out with Barcheck, we're hanging out, like we're going to places and meeting people. And we actually were helping Brian Barcheck vend at certain shows. So one Tinley, I was like, hey, I found 4 blacktail cribos at this table, and Brian and I went over and or no, maybe it was 6 or something like that. So I was like, I want a pair, and Brian's like, well, I'll take the other ones. And we talked the lady into like, they're like $250 each or something like that, right? They're babies, but we grew our pair up for a year and sold them for I think like $800 or $900 each. Like I was like, wow, that's a huge, and sold it within a few minutes of.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anything dry marcon is just boom.
Right. So $600, and you know what made us want to sell it? And we look back now and we shouldn't have done it.
Was it the poops?
Not so much. I mean, yeah, they poop and they stink sometimes. It's not crazy though. It's the feed response. Look up yellowtail crebo feed response, and you'll see like John Michaels from Black Pearl Reptiles.
Yeah, didn't he get nailed on the, like right on the face?
Yeah, so he did get bit on the face once, but he has a video where he's holding up like a hook and a hook, right? So he pulls out the tub, and the yellowtail crebo shoots like 8 feet out of the tub, launches itself out of the tub, and he's like trying to put the rat in front of it before it bites him. You know, like, I'm like, oh snap! Yeah. And Ryan's like, I don't have that kind of runway. Like, what do we do? Like, so. Man,
we need to make an extension before we get into any more crevos.
Yeah, so we want them now. We really do, but
damn,
for sure.
Fun fact, like, so before I even like was really like big into reptiles and like kind of, you know, understood that this was like really something that I wanted to do, I literally lived 4 miles away from the reptarium.
Yeah.
No fucking clue. And now I live in Tennessee, and I'm like, God damn it. Like, really? Like, now I just want to go. Like, it's cool because I've got family still there, but it's like, damn, you know?
Yeah.
So I got a question, okay?
Sure.
So you start with these ball pythons, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What made you kind of like, how many other things do you do? Let me start there.
Let me count it up. I mean, so we do 2 variety of skinks. We do my favorite snake right now is African file snakes.
Oh, that was another species at that expo I almost got, but I had no idea how to care for it, so I ended up.
So there are very few that are captive bred in the United States, so be wary. And they're a species that you'll probably have to do lung washes for.
Oh,
so you got to do
I'm
a lot
glad
of
I did
research.
not pick it up.
Yeah, but they are awesome. They're the coolest snake, man. So we work with them. We have, I think, 4 of those at the moment. We'll be getting more, and we have a breeding trio, so we're going to be breeding those probably starting right about now.
Ooh, that's definitely something I'm going to have to pick up from you guys.
Yeah, man.
I really appreciate you. Also, I can't remember who the guy was, but you made a video. It was a little collab talking about the actual care with file snakes, which is awesome because I could not find a thing about them.
And that's why we did it. We're going to do more videos. We're actually going to go visit. So that's Matthew Most for Sarpamitra. Mm-hmm. He's out in Indiana, right outside of Indianapolis. And we've been to his house a couple times, and we've done videos there. But the pandemic hit when we were like, oh, we're going to come and do like a whole bunch of these care videos, and then we couldn't. So
it's been a bit of a nightmare in 2020. I've been hearing about other countries are now going into their second lockdown. So I fear that it is only a matter of time for us.
Yeah,
I'm in Jersey, so it's happening here for sure. It's going to.
Yeah, I know Massachusetts just got really strict on a bunch of stuff on, I think, this Friday, actually. Oh, no, today.
Yep. Yeah, Pennsylvania does the same thing today.
Well, it's going to be a waiting game on that stuff. I mean, I know it's going to get bad down here, too. I mean, our cases jumped like a ridiculous amount. It was really absurd, and it's like, holy shit, like, come on, people.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy. Just come on. But to the reptiles, so you kind of got those. So, like, what kind of, like, brought you into the skink side of it?
So all right. So, and we also have like 6 more species of snakes too, which we can go through in later or something. But so
definitely, I want to talk about some of those old world rats a little later.
Yeah. So I try to make friends with all these people, and I saw blue tongue skinks around. I think they're cool. I'm like, all right, I want to learn a little bit more about them. Barcheck is like, dude, I'm buying up skinks. You got to buy up skinks. They're going to be the next thing. And I'm like, oh, really? So
I still remember that video from like, I don't know, a year or 2 where he was like, skinks are the big thing. No one here like, oh shit, how do I buy some skinks?
Yeah, that was like 6 years ago, if you can believe it. Like
I guess time flies.
So we started buying up some skinks, and we were like, we're like going on Craigslist, going on Facebook, going on anywhere. If we saw an Australian blue tongue skink, I'm like, show me a picture, and if I see it, I'm like, all right. If it looks like not a hybrid to an Indonesian, then I'm like, all right, cool, I'll take it. And so we bought up a bunch of northerns, and then we said, we're gonna try the eastern thing. So we bought there was a year that we bought like every eastern that was for sale in the United States. Like seriously. And people were like, hey, this eastern's been up on Facebook for like 10 minutes. And I'm like calling the guy already and I'm buying it. Like every time that I could find an eastern, I was trying to buy it. And we ended up with a decent collection of easterns. We also imported three from Canada, 2 from Germany, and before the ban.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I was like going in. I mean, I spent some money on Eastern Blue Tongue Skinks, and it paid off. I mean, this year for sure. We also got a full melanistic Eastern. So,
ooh, damn, that's wild.
Yeah, very few of those in the United States.
Yeah, Eastern. I was gonna say I've only ever seen the. I know they have them in Northerns, but I'm not sure. I'm a little unclear on Northern morphs. What's happening with the U.S. versus in Australia? I know they've got all the funky stuff going on over there. It seems a little bit. I can kind of compare it to tokay geckos. I've been the same exact way. If there's a tokay genetic out there, I'm immediately buying it. I don't care how much it costs.
Yeah.
But I'm super limited on what I can get in America. Where then I see these guys posting from Indonesia, things like this, and they just have these wild things that I can only ever dream about.
Yeah. It's funny, and we could talk more about the skinks. I mean, I can go into skinks a lot.
Okay, so let me stop you right there. Okay, I keep trying to look up the name of what the actual skink is that we have. It starts with an M.
Maruki.
Okay, so
I did pronounce it right.
Maruki. Okay.
Or Maruki. I always pronounce the E at the end. I don't know.
Okay.
Not everybody does. But a Maruki.
You take a look at that species name and you're like, Marua.
Yeah.
I did. Man, several times I'm like, okay, I just need to hear somebody else say it.
Yeah,
so
Maruki. Yeah, so when you look at Hal Mahera, forget it.
Yeah.
Or Irian Jaya, when you look at those, they're just Indonesian. They're different islands, over in Indonesia. And so, like, it's different species, they are in Indonesia. But, yeah, they all, if you look at them and you don't know, if you've never heard the name before, yeah, they look ridiculous to say.
I think I was pronouncing it Himalayan because I'm slightly
dyslexic. Yeah. So
maybe I'm from Jersey. I might not be pronouncing it right anyway.
So I think actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is terrible, but my wife really wanted it. Okay,
yeah.
So that's where it started, and then we got it, and I'm quite certain that now you say that name, that's ringing a bell, that it was a Hal Mahera. What's the history on those things? I mean, like, what are from what I've read, those are hard to breed.
They are.
Okay.
So there's a handful of people that breed Indonesian species in the United States, and they say it's not terrible, but I know most people don't have good luck with them. I think it has to do with how you cycle them. I think it has something to do with maybe there's like a wet season there too, so that you have to control a few things. We did a podcast with Vin Russo, and he's like a huge boa guy. He's like the boa guy, right? And he said back in the 90s he used to produce like Marukis, and he said Indonesians. I think it was Maruks, and he just said, "Oh, I produce them all the time, no big deal." And I'm like, wow, like that's impressive, like back in the 90s and being able to do that. But they are tricky. So a lot of people at a lot of reptile shows, you'll see the imports of Indonesian species because they're easy and cheap to get in, and they'll sell for like $180, maybe even cheaper.
Yeah.
And the problem is they're always wild caught. So when people get Hal Maheras, you're like, which Hal Maheras have been big the last year or so to be big import, and they're cool, and they're great animals, and the difference between a wild caught just about anything and a captive born animal, there's always going to be a huge difference in temperament, and also how you cycle them if you're able to breed them. So you're going to be a lot more, I guess, it'll be easier to breed a captive born, obviously, than a wild caught, just because of what they've been through and stuff like that. And I can get into like all the issues that can come up with wild caught stuff with Hal Maheras and things like that. But generally, if they look healthy, they're all right. Yeah. But I don't want to downplay it too much. But I try to tell people, hey, for $180 skink, you might as well pay the $300 or $400 for a captive bred one.
Right. Yeah, there is definitely a difference. I have an import. It was a local pet store. Had it for like 7 months. It's not a friendly skink, and so they weren't able to sell. They gave it to me half off. I think I ended up paying like, I don't know, $80 or something for it. And yeah, the temperament between what I've seen out of skinks and the one I have is there's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, I have a friend who has 3 daughters, and I sold her a northern like 2 years ago, and they play dress up with it. They like carry it around like puppy dogs. These things, they really are. They're one of the easiest species, really, to keep as a pet. They're unbelievable blue tongue skinks.
I also find them, I kind of compare them like, there's like the Mexican black king snakes or the poor man's indigo. I find the blue tongue skink is the poor man's tegu. So it doesn't get as large, but still pretty personable. And they just look silly. I mean, how can you not love the aesthetic look of a blue tongue skink?
Yeah, and generally an adult blue tongue skink, if it's captive born and you handle it, kind of once in a while, it's not going to every once in a while give you a little nip that'll take, a big chunk out.
Even with my sub-adult, I've gotten some pretty nasty bites over the time.
Yeah.
I heard that they've got a pretty not too bad. I mean, I get bit by monitors all the time, so it's not too bad, but it's you feel it for sure.
Oh, it's a strong bite. It's just that the captive born ones generally are pretty calm. Like they'll like be fussy sometimes, but if you're handling them seriously, they don't usually bite you. But they eat snails in the wild, like break through their shells.
Yeah.
So wrap your mind around that. If you get a finger in there, it's gonna probably break.
There's some bite force under that for sure. So something that I just kind of like recently stumbled across in your guys' videos was brumation. Skinks go through brumation?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So Australia gets cold in certain areas. There's a few species of blue tongue skinks in Australia that we really enjoy. The Indonesian stuff, you cool them just a tiny bit. You have like a 95-degree hot spot is usually what we keep all of our blue tongues, even Indonesians, are roughly around that area. And you drop them down to like 75, like it's not like crazy. That's pretty much what we do with our northerns. We like shut off the heat spot and drop down to ambient of like 80 to 70, depending on the room. And that kind of will help cycle them. But there's species in Australia that, like westerns and there's a few others, but they'll get down to like in the 30s or less, like in the wild. So there's the shinglebacks, and I've heard that they've seen them like out kind of in the snowy areas or like in a place where it's really cold, sunbathing. And so there's a few that are like that. And so easterns get down pretty cold. In Australia, they cycle them down. They'll say, oh, we'll keep them in the room, but we won't heat the room. Whatever gets the temperature outside is what they get down to. And it'll get to be like, in the 40s or 50s. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cold, So we built a room, like a big freezer, but we built a room that we cool down to 55. And we put, I don't know, $30,000 worth of skinks in it. And you're like,
see you guys in a few months.
That's scary.
That is so wild.
I know, right?
I had no idea about that. I had no idea that there were certain skinks that actually could withhold and withstand that type of temperature and information like that. That's fucking nuts.
There's a guy that's pretty successful in breeding westerns down in Florida. He got out of it just a couple of years ago and actually dumped all of his collection of westerns into like the population. So a lot of people I know like kind of who got them all, because when you're in the skink world, you like want to know who has what. And so I talked to him, and he said, dude, it's not hard. What I do is I put them in a tub and I throw them in a freezer. He just closed them in a freezer for the winter. And I'm like,
holy shit.
He goes, yeah, no, it drops down into like, you want it to be like 40 degrees for the winter. And I'm like, so
my God.
Westerns are selling for like $4,500 each. You know, like, come on. And he had, I forget how many he had, like 16 of them or something like that. I don't know. So you're like,
dang.
That's scary to do.
Yeah,
I get it. You put them right next to your frozen pizzas every now and then. When you're looking for a meal, you're like, oh, I should probably check on these skinks. Oh, good to go.
Yeah, that is what he did. Like, I mean,
pizza, skinks, money.
Yeah,
perfect.
And then your rats. Don't forget about your rats there.
Yeah. Oh no, we have a separate freezer for that. We don't like the mix.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the brumation. So what we do for brumation for the Easterns is we put them in. You stop feeding them for like 2 weeks, so that they clear out. Then it's just like a colubrid, you know, like we turn off the heat and we let them cool down for like another couple weeks where they're just kind of ambient, and then we put them into the cold room for like 3 months, man. Like no food, 3 months. We have water in there. What I tell people, there's a big tip that I tell people though. When you put stuff into a cold room, something that you don't think about maybe, because in the winter it's dry out, right? Mm-hmm. But in a cold room, if you open the refrigerator door or freezer door, there's condensation. So it's actually a lot more humid in there than you want it to be. And our first year, we didn't think about that. We didn't, and we didn't lose any animals or anything like that, but we noticed some things that made it seem like it shouldn't have been so humid, and we didn't get as good of a breeding. We didn't produce as much as we thought we would our first year, and I think it had something to do with the humidity. So I try to tell people, if you're going to cool down things, it's great. Just your humidity should be like in the 30% range while they're in brumation, and they go down from Thanksgiving-ish all the way till January sometime. We start warming them up, so we don't breed them until February-ish, something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, they do sound pretty similar to colubrids. I dipped my toes into some Mexican black king snakes last year, and it was the same way. Luckily, I don't use the downstairs part of my building, so it stays relatively cold at about that 55 to 45 range. And I did the same thing, just dropped them in a bin, put them down there, and left them alone for 3 months. And it was the most nerve-wracking 3 months probably of my life.
Yeah. It's weird, man. Like, our melanistic was probably the most expensive reptile we've ever bought. Mm-hmm. And to put that much, and I hate to say it like that, it's a money thing. It's not. It's just, it makes it more like, hey, like, I don't want to have to replace this. Aside from the fact that it's like near impossible to get them. I don't want to lose that animal. And so when you put them into a cooler, you're like, I think that's a huge, I guess I'd say, problem with the community is, especially when we're talking about businesses, people hate when you mix animals with business. But I mean, at the same time, that's what this is, Yeah. I mean, I don't want, I hate to admit it, but yes, for my multiple $1,000 tow case, they are taken care of and a little bit more precautions than, my $15 imports. Not to say neither one of them are, getting any special care, but some are taken a little bit more carefully looked at than the other. And it happens. I mean, you try not to do it that way, like you're saying, but sometimes you're like, hey, it's kind of like if you buy 2 cars and they're both great cars and they're both perfect, it gives you from A to B, but one's
a Civic, one's a Ferrari. Which one are you putting in the garage? That's what I'm going to say.
Exactly what I'm saying too. Yeah. So, and we try to do everything we can to make everything even, and we try to take care of all of our animals. But yeah, when people say it's not about money, it's all about animals and stuff, and I'm like, okay, it is. It's about animals, and that's why we got into it.
We have the passion for animals. We obviously you see the people getting into the ball pythons that don't have the passion, the drive for it. They're gone a year or two from now. So in order to keep it, let's be honest, this business is nothing but headaches, constant, one obstacle after another.
Absolutely.
So you really got to have the passion for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's definitely headaches, and I don't know if we want to get off of Skinks, and start getting into business stuff because, again, but it's those wins.
We'll let it flow, man. Let it flow.
It's those little wins, like, so you're like, oh man, like I haven't produced any animals, in 3 months. Like, this sucks. And, but then it's those little wins like, oh man, I just produced this like crazy whatever, or, I just produced my very first whatever. And it's just those little wins are the things that like, keep you going. And
Speaking of
stories like that.
Speaking of little wins, is it? I might be remembering this incorrectly, but one of the Lori balls. Didn't you produce one of the first Lori ball combos?
So we bought a super Lori from Barcheck like years ago, and it was a female, and it took a few generations of like producing stuff to like start to get ahead of anywhere. And so there's another gene that's similar, het red xanthic, if we're going into ball python stuff. Yeah, sure. It's a very similar gene, but they are different, I guess. So I think that they're two different lines of the same gene, but they look different, as adults. I think that they're different. So I think that it's cool to chase after it a bit. And Brian kind of sat on it, and he'll tell you, like, he sat on it for a while.
He said a few times in his podcast how.
So sometimes I'm like, Brian, look, check this out. And then he's like, I hate you. Like, I need to start making more and whatever. So there's been a few combos that we made this year that have been pretty cool. We're still learning. There's a lot to go,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that we've made like 4 or 5 world's first with Lori stuff this year. But just happens to be because like not that many people have done a lot with it. That's all,
It's still got to feel pretty cool. We've got some eggs cooking right now for Tokays that I'm hoping to get some world's first. And, even if it's, the world's first, it's a little exciting. You get to be like, yeah, I'm the first one to make that. That was me.
Yeah. Oh, it's cool. The very first time we made a world's first, we made this ball python, and we're like, oh man, this is the world's first. And we did a pairing of it, and we got all duds, right? Oh. So the next year, we actually hit one. We did the same pairing this following year, and we actually hit one. We're like, yeah. And when they laid eggs, somebody else came out with that combo. So we were actually not the very first, but it was close.
So I brought him out real quick.
Yeah.
He's here.
Can I see the top of his head? Yeah. So that's a Hal Mahera. Yeah. So cool, man.
He's pretty sweet. He's not really too fond of me. I mean,
yeah,
he loves my wife, so I don't know.
Yeah,
we've got a love-hate relationship, but he's good for the most part.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. They're awesome. They really are the best pet.
Yeah, they are. He's pretty sweet. I loved I think the major thing that really kind of draw us in was the fact of how big he was, because we had a couple fire skinks and whatnot. That was kind of like a really good starter, and then we were just like, all right, yeah, let's get a big one.
Yeah,
and we seen that big one, we're like, oh my gosh, and we held him. We're like, oh, he's so cool, and yeah, I mean, it's nothing like a monitor for me, but it was just it reminded me of like a little bit of like a tegu, but a snake. It's kind of like the slithery, perfect in between. So
yeah, and people are always surprised at how fast they are.
Oh man, so fast! Holy cow!
Yeah,
super slick.
All right, I'm apologizing where this is going to get a little ADHD. We're going to be bouncing back and forth. There's so many topics I want to try to cram into this segment. But going back with Skinks, let's stick with Skinks for a minute. Something that I've talked to you a little bit about this. I've wanted to get into Skinks for a couple of years. It's the fact that there's unless something's been come up within the past few months, there's not a definite way to sex them, and that has always kind of made me hesitant into starting, dropping some money and getting a project going. So what I'd like to know, did you go out and did you spend that extra, couple grand on those already, ready to breed, proven female, proven males, or did you kind of just buy a group and try to figure out what's what?
So, so skinks are interesting. And I tell people, people are like, I want a female. And you're like, okay. It's not the same as most reptiles. Yes, they are very hard to sex, and usually you can't sex them until they actually breed. There's a guy named Warren Booth. He might be trying to start a project to figure out if you send them some sheds.
I think was that one of your podcasts?
Yeah,
I think I listened to that one. Yeah,
he's talking about he might do it in his spare time kind of thing. And then so you can look at the body structures and of an adult, like say it's 10 months old, I can usually guess, and I'm like 90% right. If you deal with them a lot, you can get pretty good guesses. But they, as babies or young ones, you can pop them, but by doing so, you can hurt them. Sometimes you'll crack something in their spine, and then they won't walk well and they won't breed. Sometimes you can damage a hemipene, and then they won't breed. Also, when you pop them, sometimes the female scent glands are pretty big, and sometimes the males' hemipenes don't really come out all the way. So you're not always, certain that you're going to get.
Sometimes they got some small fellas, huh?
Yeah. So there's ways you can try to figure it out, but the best way is just to, check them for when they breed. But the males aren't always receptive or into it. So I tell people okay, you want to get females and that's cool, but you really should have a 50-50. You should have, if you have 5 females, you should have 5 males. With blue tongue skinks, that's just, you're going to need it. It's just the way it goes because you'll put them together. I have a male this year that was yeah, I want to breed. And he's all over it. And they bite, as that video you saw a little bit, they bite the neck, right underneath the arm or right above the arm, around that area. And then they wrap their tail under and they breed, like a lot of lizards.
Yeah.
It's pretty violent. But so this guy would bite and then just kind of spin in circles and not breed. He never bred.
I forgot to point out that that is some good stuff.
I've never seen that happen before. And that dude was trying to breed his own tail. I don't know what.
That's some viral video content, man. You got to push that out there. You that on TikTok?
Yeah.
I seen that video and I was like, oh yeah.
That's funny.
It was a gold find.
Yeah, it's a funny video. It didn't get that many views because it's not the typical length and stuff that our other videos do. But
yeah,
it's a funny video. I thought it was hilarious. But so they try to breed, and sometimes you get a male that just won't. And if you lose that window, then you're done for the year. Right. So you got to get other males in there sometimes. So it's good to just buy a bunch. What we did was we bought adults that we guessed on, but we also bought a bunch of babies. We bought, anything we could find really, and then just hoped.
Right. So I just kind of want to point out to anybody who's watching or comes across this video, you guys posted a video a while back. I can't remember the name of it exactly. We were just talking about it before we started the show. I'm going to post a link for that video down in the description info section. It is financials and what you love. Okay. Yeah. I can't tell you. Now, I stumbled across this video when I was not sure if I was actually going to get into this. And I had to really, off that video, it really gave me the idea of okay, I really need to do what I love and focus upon that. That's why I brought in the Savannah monitors. That's why I brought in, the investments to make sure that they have everything that they need and proceed with giving them the, the care and everything that comes with it. Watching that video, I feel like can really open up a lot of eyes for a lot of people. I know it did for me. And you guys posted that video a long time ago. So that was something for me. I mean, it made a huge difference. So I highly recommend anybody watching that. I mean, it's some really good insights.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That's a funny story, that video, a little bit. But I do appreciate it. And I always hope that, you know, our videos help people. I mean, ultimately, we want to entertain people and we want to help people. So the funny thing about that video was, so Ryan and I started YouTube. Well, we started YouTube forever ago, but we weren't doing anything with it until I guess it's been about 18 months or so ago. And we started trying to get content. And one day he was like, "Hey, I'm not here." Like, he wasn't at his house, so at Ryan's house is where we keep all the animals. Yeah. So I was there. I made a video by myself without him there, which was this video, and I told him about it, and he ripped me hard about it. He's like, that's dumb. Like, nobody's gonna want to listen to you, like, or like us, not just me per se, but, you know, listen to us. And I'm like, yeah, but the tips are right. Like, the tips are. It's not like I was wrong in anything. And he's like, yeah. And it turns out that that's like in our top 5 of most viewed videos.
I mean, it's a straightforward video. I mean, it's very cut and dry. And for me, I mean, that's how I am. Like, that's I took it in like, I mean, it just was all the information was there. I was easily able to just, oh, fuck, well, that makes sense. You know, I mean, it's super simple. And I think for a lot of people, I think that that's one of the huge things is people just want to know the answer. And you gave the answer, you know, and that was, I mean, you don't get much better than that.
It's funny. Like, we've all made mistakes in the hobby and in the industry. Yeah. It's just the way it goes. And Ryan and I, we're actually talking about making another video of, like, currently what our top 5 tips are for people to get into it. But you got to balance, and Dakota and I were talking about this earlier. You got to balance out your passion. You got to balance out, you know, the financials, because people will say, "Oh, it's not," but try feeding, you know, your collection. You got to make money somehow, or you can't do it out of your pocket. Like, it just it kills you. I mean, we're doing like $250 a week in rats. Like, it turns into a lot of money when you start thinking about it. And we're not that big. Like, we're you know, middle of the road.
You're pretty big. You're coming from a guy with 5 ball pythons. You guys gotta. If you have a wall of rats, I consider you a little bit up there. You're no more the. You're not the guy with 20 gallons.
We're in the middle, I feel like, but yeah, it's so you gotta figure out a way to kind of help offset your costs. And people are like, "Oh, it's not about money, it's about animal." So let me tell you something. If I go out and I make like $5,000 at a show, almost always I'm gonna spend that $5,000 on another animal. Like, I'm buying somebody else's $5,000 animal. Like, I mean, that's so. And we do the podcast with Dave Levinson, and that's something that he talks about all the time. The money, you know, just rotates around the hobby, and you put a little bit more in every time, but it's really just rotating around.
Yeah, so. I couldn't agree more. I remember still when I was just keeping, I was thinking, you know, that $500 snake, that $500 gecko. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think I could really get that much. Now I'm over here, you know, we got the commas now when I'm buying animals. And yeah, as you grow and as your business grows, you buy the more expensive stuff and so forth. I think that really goes into individual projects as well. You know, my passion, of course, is tokay geckos. They got a huge thing where we're up to, I think, 20, 25 geckos now, including babies. And I can't make this work with just tokay geckos. It wouldn't work. Not that many people want tokay geckos. Enough for me to not only make the my business self-sufficient, but fuel me enough to be able to continue to do this full time. And of course, that's why we have stuff like the crested geckos, some of the ball pythons, and more, because I just want to make cool stuff. There's so many things. I saw. I think it was you guys. Did you guys just make some leopard spot nose clowns?
No, well. Not really. We made close.
It might have been somebody else. I got a few people on Instagram, but I saw leopard spot nose clowns, and now I'm like, oh well, shit. Now I got to get that. I got to get some GHI in here. I want this, that. Of course, we need some pied stuff.
It is.
Next thing I know, that 10-tier rack that was empty is now. Oh, I need to get 2 or 3 more of these.
Yep. That's what we say. It's the ball pythons are like the crack of the reptile world. You
It's
know,
too
like,
much.
you get hooked on ball
Too
pythons.
much for my mind to wrap around.
You get hooked on ball pythons, and then that's your like entryway, your gateway drug to the reptiles, and you go off to like you get into a lot of like bigger things and cooler things. You know, I always get worried when people their first reptiles like a Burmese python, and you're like, well, in 3 years, either you're gonna love it or you're gonna lose it. You know, like.
Yeah.
I'd rather people get into like some cool small blue tongue skink, you know, or ball pythons, or even tokay geckos, or you know, something that's fun, something that's like you can put in a tank that you could see every day, something that comes out.
I would classify tokay geckos as fun. Exhilarating would be a better word.
Hey,
If you're looking for
better.
adrenaline rush, tokay geckos are the animal for you.
There's nothing better than walking into a room, noticing the tank's empty, and that there's a tokay gecko about to like fly onto your face and bite your ear. You know, like
You know, so I
That's
just recently, so some of the tokays I got in, I had 4 of them come in, and probably the nastiest one I had, the absolute nastiest one I had, I would hold on to him quite frequently, but like he'd bite me every time. Okay, he'd lunge at me. I mean, absolutely just forward progression every time. I had somebody just absolutely beg me for this tokay. Ended up being the last one I had. I was like, are you sure? Like, it fully explained everything. Like, look, this guy lunges like he wants your flesh. I don't care. I want him. I ended up seeing a video today, and she's got fingers in there really close to him. He's not lunging at all. He's eating his mealworms. He's hanging out. So, I mean, there's progression being made. So it's like, I really like that. I don't think there's a tokay that's not trainable. I really don't. And Dakota, I think you can kind of, from what you've seen, man.
I had a guy give me one of it's probably my second or third largest male, normal, and he's like, I can't get rid of this thing. I can't sell it. It's horrible. It's a horrible animal. Like you were saying, lunging, attacking. Yeah. So I spent the next 2 months pretty much every day working with it, just so I could hold it in my bare hand without it gaping, and send the guy a picture just to kind of be an asshole about it. I'm like, here's your horrible animal.
Yeah.
No, I've done that with a couple Niles, and like I had a blue tail Nile, and I had a just a regular Nile that was complete assholes. And now I get Savannahs in all the time that are just complete asshole. Like, I can't take care of it. It won't even let me hang on to it. But which other videos will be posted, and you can kind of check out that content. But there's certain precautions you have to take. There's certain methods you have to do to be able to ensure the animal feeling safe, as well as not letting them feel threatened when you're around them, because you're bigger than them right away. I mean, immediately they're going to feel threatened. And, you know, to scale it back, you know, you guys kind of, you know, touching on the fact of like, you know, it's having something small to start off with, and like, you know, look in the glass, see it every day. Well, here's my dumbass getting ornates, Niles, Savannahs. I mean, my first pet was a Savannah. Like, you know, from there, it just really kind of progressed. And there was a time frame that I didn't have any reptiles because I was just not in the position to have them. And I eventually got back into it. I got another Savannah and had that for quite a long time, still do. And it was like, okay, like I kind of want to do this. But then that's when I started doing research. And then my wife was like, oh, I love reptiles. And I'm just like, wait, what? And like at that point, it was like, okay, well, what do you want? I made sure she had all what she wanted. So then that way I was like, it's my turn. Mm-hmm. So I pulled the trigger on that and got everything I could that I wanted. And I mean, she's so supportive. She's so, you know, down for everything. But, you know, I definitely jumped off the deep end and got a mouthful more than probably what I could chew right away. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely recommend to anybody, take this man's advice. Start with something small. Make sure you're in it to win it, because
Yeah.
it could be a long, dangerous road.
Yeah. I mean, it's the typical, like, back in the 80s and 90s, what was the reptile that everybody got? Green iguanas, right? I mean,
Oh,
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
right? And everyone's like, yeah, I used to have an iguana. And you're like, oh, do you have it now? No, man, that thing was mean. Well, that's because you didn't know how to keep it. Because they're not a starter pet. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
Right.
I would never give anybody, I think that people have to do the research. I think there's a lot of small stuff that's cool, but there's decent sized things that are good. But you got to do your research, I think that boas, like, if you want a big snake, a boa is not a terrible snake as your first snake.
I actually think they make fantastic pets. I just got a normal BCI. I don't know if she has anything special in her. It's a big little female, but no problems. I've never had her strike. I show everyone that everyone wants to see the big snake. All the non-reptile friends that come over, I always take her out. I'm like, look, see, she doesn't bite. I'm like messing with her face. She's just. Yeah. I think they're great, and I got a couple of videos on why I think they're like the perfect large snake. They don't get too big. I've never seen one. I mean, I'm sure there are some that are mean, but just from personal experience, I think they make a fantastic pet. Yeah,
they're one of those pets that like, it's a snake that once you get it out, they're great. That kind of, they have a good feed response. But if they're fed well, they're going to be great animals. And so that's a big snake, like, without getting crazy. And people are like, like, they're like, oh yeah, that's like, okay, I can. But people are always like, oh man, I really want that big, like, I really want that tiger. I want a monkey, and you're like, you're probably not really in a position to really, really get one of these.
Right.
Like,
man, what are you trying to say here? Because I'll have you know, I've got Craigslist open right now, $2,000. Apparently, Joe Exotic is doing some sale right now.
I bet. Yeah, I don't know. I just it's not so much that, I mean, I do worry about the animals, right? And I care about the animals, and everybody focuses on the animals. But really, my big picture, like, if that's like an immediate thing, my idea, what I focus on is the bigger picture, saying, all right, this person is going to, in 2 years or whatever, going to get out of that animal, and they're probably never going to get back into reptiles. But I want, for me, it's not about that one animal. Like, I want that person to get into reptiles, to help other people get into reptiles and do it right, so that the hobby and the industry and what we all do can grow and grow. I mean, it's growing at like 18% a year or something like that, like the reptile hobby.
Yeah, I heard reptiles now were what, the third most kept species in America?
It could be, but probably. But I think it's the fastest growing pet market right now in the United States, which is awesome. I mean, what else do we got? Cats, dogs, and snakes.
Bunnies?
Right.
Bunny. Oh, rabbits. Yeah, rabbits probably. Yeah, that's true.
I honestly, I could not agree with you more on that. And, I say this every show, anytime that we talk reptiles. I mean, if anybody that knows me and why I do what I do, it's because I do what I love, and it's honestly to help this community grow, because we've got the greats, we've got the Barchek, we've got Nerd, we've got top tier guys, but like once they get to that age, or once they get to like hey, I love it, like check out my old content, they're done making new content, then it becomes up to the next generation.
Yeah.
To really put out that information and like the new, training ways and, and
I don't know, man. I still see, Ty Park's over there with Iguanaland. We got Tom Crutchfield over in Facebook groups still. I mean, I'm unsure on the guy's age, but he's still out there in Facebook groups.
He is. I see him. I follow him, and I watch some of his videos, and I can agree with that. But
you gotta love Tom Crutchfield.
Time is not forever.
Yeah.
Time is not forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's up to us, guys. We're us three. We have to single-handedly carry the hobby.
Exactly.
Hands in the middle.
All right, let's do this. Reptile hobby.
And break.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys know who Ryan McVeigh is, but he's he's a big reptile guy. He's the president of Madison Area Herpological Society, and he's super knowledgeable, super great guy. But one thing that he's taught me over the years, and I've known him for a long time, we've known him for a long time, and he super knowledgeable. But one thing that he's taught me and that I need to focus on more, which I've been trying for the last few years, is when you – so he works for Zilla, and he does a lot of the enclosures, things like that. Anything reptile related for Zilla, he's like the guy. And so one of the things that he's taught me is like when you're selling an animal, okay, you sold an animal, that's cool, but you need to sell a passion. And the way to sell a passion is to, make sure that the person's going to be successful, that, to make your customer successful, make as many people as you can successful, and then give them an opportunity to like love whatever they have going on. So when he sees little kids, and they're like, oh, I really want like a sand boa. You're like, sand boas are cool. They're an easy animal. They're great. They're going to hide in the dirt all the time. You'll never see them. So the kid's never going to get like excited about it unless they're like, maybe a little bit older and able to like really, really mess with them. But you should get an animal that you can have on display, that you can see moving around, so anytime that we as a community, we as a hobbyist, we as, who we are, the industry, we need to be helping people become successful and to create passions with people. And the only way we can do that is direct them to the right animals, direct them to the right knowledge, direct them to the right anything that they can do to be successful. Because if you're just trying to sell like, hey man, I'm going to sell this animal to this kid, he doesn't know anything about it, and I don't care because I just want the money for it, or I need the rack space or whatever. Like you're doing yourself a favor right now, but you're not going to do yourself a favor in a couple of years. Like,
yeah, I think it's going to like short-term versus long-term gain.
Yeah,
and I see that with plenty of my customers. I have a lot of repeat people coming in for specific species where, I sell a baby here and then I sell an adult there. The guys are coming back. I've had, I think, a dude buy 3 or 4 of my tokays at this point. He comes back every year because he just wants more. And that's something I really try to do in my channel, not only for the community itself, but also for some of these specific species. I mean, tokay geckos, we can kind of compare them back to like ball pythons. They were the junk animal, $15 imports. They suck. They're horrible. They're the devil gecko, names like this. I can't tell you how many people message me now and they're like, I want one of your tokay geckos because you make it look so fun. And that's really what I try to do on my channel is take some of these species, tokays. I kind of stopped the jungle carpet because apparently no one really cares about me talking about carpet pythons. But I'm now trying to do this with the Argus monitors, take these animals that are shined in a really negative spotlight and kind of turn people's opinions about them to see they're not that bad and they're actually really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, to add to that too, that's exactly my take on, for people that don't know me, that's what I do is I take Savannahs, I take Niles, ornates, like that's the next big thing I'm working on that I'm really wanting to put all of my focus on are the Niles and ornates because I feel like, these guys are going, you can pick up an ornate or a Nile for like $30, $35. Savannah sometimes, around the same price, $40 tops. They're always wild. They're always going to be flighty, and I'm hoping that, my training videos and whatnot can really kind of help bring those who have those animals that are a little bit older, but, it's still not too late, and I hate seeing people feel like it's too late and have to surrender the animal because they're like, I just can't take care of it. And it's
right.
There's methods of approach, and that's what it bounced back to is, having that type of procedure that you go through with these guys, putting the time in, if you guys, I don't feel like you ever should be getting a pet reptile if you don't know what the behavior is, what the proper husbandry is, all the little things with it, like without really putting in that time and effort to do the research, it's not good.
Yeah, I agree.
It ends up good.
So getting a little bit back on topic here, I really want to talk about these old world rats, man. You've got some really interesting stuff. I believe last time we got to see one of your male rhinos. Let's talk a bit about that. What do you got going on? I know we kind of cut you off before you were stating the rest of your stuff. So let's hear about some rat snakes. What do you guys got? What are you working with?
Okay, so we have 3 of the porphyraceous, so the bamboo rat snakes. There's 4 species. We got 3 of those. We have the 4th species on order, basically. So we're gonna get, and it's not like it's uncommon. We just didn't get them. So we're gonna get there. We have mandarin rat snakes, which are like super pretty, right? We have the rhino rat snakes. We have Japanese forest rat snakes, which are cool. And if I can just give a little plug, shout out to my boy Ryan Goodman, who's so
hell yeah.
So Ryan, right? He's the animal guy, and we've struggled with a lot of not struggled. That's the wrong word. We took the colubrids really slow, like we're growing them up slow and stuff, and now we're starting to produce animals with them, which is awesome. So Japanese forest rats are they're an interesting species. So we got a pair of them a few years ago. We bred them this year, and we produced 1 egg. They produced like 1 or 2 eggs. We produced 1 egg. And I think that we're the 2nd person in the United States to do it, and 1 of 5 in the world to do it in captivity.
Hey, that's gotta be pretty cool.
So there's a zoo in Japan that can't produce them, and that's in the home country. Like they can't produce them in captivity. So Matt Most, who we've learned like everything that we do with old world rat snakes and stuff are, because of him and from him, and learning a lot of things from me. He's super, super smart. He's like the old world rat snake guy in the United States. So to produce something that's like very difficult to produce, we're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Now, dude, so this is, let me blow your mind a little bit. And I tell people this and they're like, I can't believe that. So we had an egg. It's huge egg compared to the parent. It could be like 120 days or something like that to hatch. It's nuts. But they can hatch and then not eat for a year.
You didn't blow my mind because I think I watched that video, and that's when my mind was blown. When he was talking about his rats, he's like, yeah, I usually just hatch them out and then put them right in brumation.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think, oh, this thing hasn't eaten. And you're like, well, the way to keep it alive is to not feed it. You offer
the freezer you go.
You offer it food, and if it eats, it eats. A year. No meals. From hatching.
It's pretty nuts. I know I hear people with carpet pythons, they sometimes wait like a month before feeding, and you think of a snake that, roughly around that size. But colubrids, man, they're a different species for sure. They're a different game.
We also have 100-flower rat snakes, which we're getting there too. We haven't bred them yet, and we only have 1 currently. But we're getting more soon, so there's a lot of fun stuff, man. The colubrids are fun. The old world rat snakes, people are like, oh man, they're real bitey. I'll be honest. When we got into them, we thought that they were, and they're not really. I've never been bit by any adult old world rat snake. Not a once. Now, I got some of our adult rhinos, if they're in a bad mood, they might strike at me, but very, very rare. And it's not like a crazy bite though either. They're not huge. But
it's pretty funny talking to you because I didn't know a lot of this for the longest time. I thought you were kind of just the ball python guy for a minute, and literally every species of rat snake you own is a species that anywhere between, since I've started this business, I'm like, oh, I need some mandarins for sure. I need some rhinos. I need some bamboos. And it's just something, again, put on the side for later. I've got other stuff that, kind of has priority, but that's some cool stuff, man. That's a pretty neat collection, Yeah,
it's fun. And that's also some of the things you're like, oh man, I really want to collect them all, like that kind of thing.
That goes right back to the like ball python mentality, except they're just different species at this point.
Yeah. So we do but we only keep a pair or 2 pair of each of those, you know, like, because there's no, well, I guess there's not that there's no morphs, but it's there are line bred traits, and there are some morphs in some of them, like the mandarins have morphs, and even the 100-flower rat snakes have morphs, which, you know, most people
That's the 100-flower or 100-flower?
100, like 100 flower.
100. That's one I have not heard of. I'll have to. I'm gonna have to look at that and then probably buy it.
Oh, they're cool. They are bitey, apparently. The adults I've held weren't. The baby that we have isn't, but they are. They can be.
We're no stranger to getting bit over here at DBCB Exotics.
Same here with Tragic. Holy shit.
So, but yeah, no, it's fun, man. It's cool. It's like, you think, so the porphyracea, the bamboo rat snakes, there's a couple wild things, man. So they'll have like 6 eggs, right? You're like, oh, awesome, man. You separate them, you know, a few weeks later, you feeding them, you put them back together. They can have like 7 clutches a year. Like, what? So like, okay, you probably do 4. You probably shouldn't get crazy, but I've heard like records like 7 a year. I'm like, that is nuts. Like
that poor female.
they just do it, and it's a lot of people thought that you had to cool them all, and you don't have to cool them all. Some of them you do, some of them you don't. It's crazy.
Wow, this is all learning stuff for me. So I don't know 2 shits about it.
I got another question as far as old world rats. So with most of your information regarding your research and care about this, is this stuff more of just from secondhand knowledge from more experienced guys? Because it does seem with a lot of the rat snakes, there really is not much publication as far as care info goes. So
Ryan reads stuff, and I'm like the video guy. Like I watch stuff and I'll talk to people, but he like really researches stuff. So what's that? The Google College, what is it? Google something. I forget what it's called, but there's a lot of information like Google Books sort of, and I can't remember the name of it for some reason. But anyway, there is information out there. There's not a lot. Yeah. So we do rely heavily on people that have been doing it for a long time. And there's some really great people out there in the hobby that also share the mentality that you need to share information. Because, for a long time, people are like, I'm not going to tell you my secrets on how to keep this animal alive. Well, nobody's going to want to get into it because they can't do it, Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are really great, and they'll point you in the right direction. They'll give you tips and stuff like that. So just finding those people and reaching out, like if anybody asks you guys, questions about Tokays or Niles, you guys are going to answer them. That's just the way it is, right? No. So, right.
No, I tell them to fuck off.
Yeah, I bet. Oh man, we do.
By the way, we have a lot of Tokay geckos for sale. If
so we don't put Ryan's number out there. He doesn't he'll talk to people online sometimes, but generally it's me. I'm the people person.
Yeah.
And I will not turn people away. It's all the time. My girlfriend really gets frustrated with me sometimes. Like, look, I got to talk to this person about, how to care for blue tongue skinks. And she's like, oh, are they buying one? I'm like, no, they're definitely not going to. But I'm going to sit there for 3 or 4 hours and explain everything. And that's just the way it is.
It's funny because I had my wife come down here and hand me the skink, and she goes, yeah, I've talked to them before. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I was like, Ben and Ryan over there, they know their skink shit.
Hell yeah.
Sometimes, we do get random stuff all the time, and hey man, it's cool. It goes back to I really want people to be successful. I don't care if they buy from me or not. I've even helped people buy snakes from other people, even though I had them for sale. Yeah. Yes, I have that one, but if you really want it from this person, fine, I'll help you. I want people to be successful. Just
I think eventually that's just going to come back around, because as that person gets the animal successful with that animal, they may not buy that particular snake from you now, but a butterfly effect with that, it could always come back.
Hopefully that's that's a good thing. But really, the reason I do it is I really do want people to be successful. because it'll grow their hobby as a whole. Really.
I think this dynamic between you and Ryan is pretty funny because I kind of feel that way with me and Trevor. I'm definitely on Ryan's side. I'm a huge introvert. I remember when I was asking you about some ball python tips, and you were like, "Yeah, call me at this time," and I'm like, "Oh no, talking on the phone, nope." And this guy. I can see the same way. I feel like my wife might be getting a little annoyed because our conversations end up being, 50 minutes to an hour of just random calls about reptile stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's really opened me up into talking to more people, trying to reach out and network.
Yeah, so Ryan's like, I'll be like, hey man, I'm real tied up. Can you answer this person on whatever? And my answers are always like complete sentences, like full, like trying to be descriptive and whatever. And I'm like, my grammar is usually like spot on. Ryan's like, don't feed it that. You're like,
it's hard. It's so hard with messages because if you don't put those long messages, people are gonna say like, "Oh, this guy's such an asshole." Like, "Oh my god, look at him."
They will take it like that too. I've had people.
So I always think like, "Hey, how is it going?" Comma, like how I need to be as friendly as possible.
Right.
It cracks me up. I'm like, dude. He's like, well, then you hop in. I'm like, I will, but like, give me a minute.
Wow.
But he does do well, and I say that he's, he is an introvert and he does like animals more than people generally, but he is good with people and he does talk. It's just some days if he's busy, he's like, I answered the question, and in his mind he's answering the question. He's being, like. I'm like,
I laugh because I relate so heavily to this.
Me and Trevor are like, yeah, but I mean,
hey,
there's a lot of people. It'll be like, there's some people. It'll be like 2 days later, and I'll be like, no, we don't have any for sale.
Yeah, I have.
So I think the real thing is, Ben, I need you back over here as well. Can you do both at the same time? I'll give you my passwords. I need you to handle my socials.
Oh man, if I took on more, oh my goodness, I'd be like freaking out.
We can't pay you.
Oh well, hey, bro, all right.
Well, hey,
that money.
I just want to make that clear. We cannot pay you.
Yeah, it's just it's funny. Like sometimes and Trevor, you probably have this happen. Like you get to the point sometimes where you get burned out of it. Like we sold a kid a skink. I'm telling you, man, they're the easiest animal. They really are. I talk to this guy twice a week for the last 3 months, and he's like, the last time he texted me, he's like, "Hey man, how do you keep dog food fresh?" I'm like, but that's not my like. I don't. I like the kid. I mean, he's a good kid and all, but like, that's not a reptile question. Like, I get it, but like,
the fridge.
Oh man. Yeah, no.
I've had a guy for 3 hours. I talked to him about this crested gecko 3 hours straight, from 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. And I have the videos. The videos are out there. I put all the information so I don't have to do this. But he wanted to buy a gecko from me. He wanted to make sure he's doing it right. So I'm like, I get it. Yeah, man, let's do it. I'll answer every little question you have. Day came to buy the reptile. Oh, sorry, I got an electric bill. I can't pay for him.
Yeah. That
I gotta
happens.
say, I may have become a little jaded ever since that day.
I first, I can tell you, I was, after a certain amount of people, I can definitely feel with what you're saying on that. You get the same question, but when the conversation goes so long, hours, messages, day after day, and it's like, when you have content out there and it's like, hey, if you just watch the video, all the information's there. And then they just you make a video that day and then they're just like, so how do I, what kind of temperature do I put them in the bath? How long do you do it for? And it's like, I explained that already,
I can't people comment questions that are in the video.
I know.
I skip it now. They're like, oh, what substrate should I use? I'm like, 4 minutes, 10 seconds.
I should start doing that. That's a good one.
I'm done. I'm I did not spend, the 5 to 10 hours on this video to answer your question when it's already there.
Yeah. That's funny. I'll send a link of the the video, but I bite the bullet and I say, I want to be the people person and I got to do it. And some days I'm like, dude, I don't feel like doing it. But
right.
I always do. I
can't let the Facebook tell you you're not being very responsive.
Yeah.
Hey, some days you got to be unavailable. That's what I think. Unavailable. But when Monday rolls around, because Mondays already suck as it is, why not just take it all in then?
Yeah.
So, I'll be honest, I'm usually on the can.
Yeah.
I'm there already. I'm not doing anything else. I'm like, all right, let's scroll through this. What we got today?
I do I have rituals. We all have rituals. I'll get to bed. When I get into bed, I check, every social media. I make sure I hit every, and I go through them all and make sure I didn't miss anything. And I try to catch everybody when they send me stuff. When they send me stuff, I try to do it right then. But right before bed, I make sure I do it. And I'm like, some days, you send that message back, you
just gotta hope they're asleep by then.
Right. And then they message you back and you're like, oh, okay. And so then you're now back and forth. And 2 hours later, you're like, what am I doing with my life? I didn't go to sleep. What was I doing?
And you haven't even gotten to the 15 other messages.
Yeah. And you're like, dude, where are you at? Because I got to go to bed. And they're like, oh, I'm in, California. I got hours.
4 p.m., but no, I'm ready to go all night.
Yeah. Yeah. Though some of the crazy things, so I'll be messaging with somebody, and I'll be like, all right, I got to go to bed. And I'll cut it off at midnight here. And they'll be like, oh, I'm in California. And I'll wake up, I wake up at 6 o'clock or whatever. So I get up at 6 and I respond to their last message and they bing back. And I'm like, what the freak were you doing? What are you doing with your life?
Come on.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, that's nuts,
This is my life. I need answers.
Yeah. It's cool. I'm impressed usually when that happens, but it is surprising. I talk to a lot of people overseas and you catch long conversations late at night or really early in the morning, in certain time zones.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah.
it happens.
Well, hey man, I'm gonna spend some time with my family here tonight before they all cash out. We got some family visiting, so hey, absolute pleasure to have you on. So knowledgeable. You've got a ton of information. I feel like we didn't even get to really fully expose.
Yeah.
Actually, real quick before we do end this, I do a quick plug. Of course, you guys have the podcast Herp House Rock.
Yep.
Unbelievable podcast. You guys have some titans of the industry working or on there as guests. Really cool place to check out. If you guys want some more information, that's actually kind of what we like to do here, to get some guys on that have been doing this for a while and get as much information as we can get. And you guys are definitely, I listen to every single one right when I'm working, either cleaning tubs or doing other stuff. I got you guys on in the background with the speakers. It's a great podcast.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. So thank you guys so much. Actually, I don't want to get off right now, so I'm going to talk for another hour. I hope you guys don't mind.
Yeah, Tragic, you can go. I mean, we got other stuff to talk about.
I didn't even talk about
that. Pull it out real quick. Hold on.
You still got skink stuff, man. I got more skink questions.
I didn't even talk about the anthill pythons, the pygmy pythons.
Anthill pythons, Tragic. Get out of here. Let's talk.
I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. It's cool. I appreciate you guys letting me.
It leaves room for a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully Ryan will be better by then, and he's got to be better by then if there's a part 2, unless it's happening tomorrow.
Well, here's the thing, Ben. We actually have an open slot for tomorrow. So, unfortunately.
Hey, look, and it doesn't take much for him to be on his phone.
I mean, how sick is the guy?
Yeah, he's pretty sick. He's got the Rona. And,
I thought I did. It turned out I just had there was another I think some sort of cold or head cold or something, but jokes aside, I understand. I was feeling like death for a good week before, and I couldn't talk also because my nose was so clogged, so probably wouldn't make for a good podcast.
Yeah, he's all right. He's just not up for it, you know. So and I've been dodging it. Like everywhere
Left
I go.
and right, man. My wife's working at the post office. She's going through like 700 houses. I have no idea how she has not caught it yet. It is unbelievable.
Well, unlike you, she's not licking every single stamp that goes out the door. You know, I mean,
well, how else are you going to get on that? You riddle me that one, Ben.
If she is, we've got a problem.
You got to kiss all the animals goodbye before you ship them out. I don't know how you do things over there.
True.
Oh my gosh! But, I kiss you.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's a solid wrapping up point.
Hell yeah! All right, so definitely going to be a part 2. I cannot wait for that. And hopefully your partner's feeling a lot better to where we can get him on here and pick at some of his knowledge as well. So
hopefully, I guess with social distancing might be a little hard. We'll have to get you guys on where you can head over to Ryan's.
Yeah, we usually do hang out.
Check out some of those other snakes. Of course, the rhino rat last time was simply gorgeous.
Yeah,
I'll get one from you. I promise. I'm still gonna do it. I am out of money until next season.
It's all good, man. It's all good. It's great. So it's been great talking to you guys, really, and I appreciate you guys letting me hop on and just keep on putting that positivity out in the hobby. That's that's the greatest thing, So
absolutely. Well, hey, we appreciate your time, Dakota, R&B. We'll see y'all later. Thank you. All right, guys. So that wraps it up, and what an amazing show. Kind of cut short, but we will be back for part 2. So stay tuned for that. And, it's definitely going to be, I've had so many comments already saying that this is one of the best shows ever. So we're going to keep continuing to progress on it and build off that. So we hope to catch you guys all soon, and be on the lookout for some upcoming ornate Nile videos. I know that I've posted a lot of Savannah stuff. I know that DBCB has a lot of new video content coming out daily and all the time. So be sure to check that out as well. Lots of good information out there. So much love to all you guys. We'll catch y'all later.